okay. And if you prefer not to be seen on the recording, you can take yourself off of the screen. You can mute. You can do whatever you want so that you are comfortable with what's happening on the screen. All right. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Some of you know her and others of you do not. I'm going to introduce to you tonight our special presenter who will talk about lupus for us. Ashley Hayes. Ashley is a warrior, a resilient lupus warrior. You may have seen this in her bio in your invitation. She's been raising awareness for lupus for many years because Ashley has been living with lupus since the age of 12. Ashley, I think you'll be able to tell us a whole bunch about the disease and the condition you have been living with. I've got some facts and some figures, and I have some questions to get things going. But I want others to know that the conditions that we talk about on this call, Ashley has been living with those too. While she also lives with lupus, she's had a stroke, she's had cervical cancer, she's had a hip replacement. But amidst all of the conditions that she's had, look at that smile, look at that glow, look at that face. She is a resilient warrior showing us the path that we all should take in the face of certain obstacles and adversity. She takes great pride in sharing her experience with others to help them transform their lives. She's transparent and she's vulnerable. We will feel her presence and her strength as she comes forward with her story about lupus. Thank you, Ashley, for joining us. We're so welcome, so thankful, and we welcome you to this call.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
So am I able to get capabilities to share my screen?
You should be. Let me do that. Let me see. Multiple participants. Okay. There you go. See if you can do that. See if you have ability now.
I believe I do.
There you are.
Can everybody see my screen?
We can.
All righty. So thank you all for having me today. I'm so excited. I see family, I see friends, I see church members, I see new people. And so thank you for providing a space of community and of belonging to make me feel comfortable with doing this. So yes, once again, my name is Ashley Hayes, formerly known as Canty, like a lot of you may know. And I have lupus, and I've been living with lupus since the age of 12. And today we're going to talk lupus. And this is going to be an overview of systemic lupus erythematosus, which is the type of lupus that I have. We're going to touch on some other types of lupus just for informational purposes, but it's going to be an overview of SLE. So let's get started. So what is lupus? We always hear lupus, lupus, lupus. I've heard people ask me a lot of times, is lupus cancer? So when we hear the word lupus, lupus is an autoimmune disease. And so it affects the systems of our body. So it's systemic lupus, meaning systems. So it's a chronic illness that can affect the skin, the joints, the kidneys, hearts, lungs, blood vessels, brains. So anything in our bodies, it can affect, okay? And actually approximately 5 million people, particularly women, is where the disease is found. And those are women that are in the childbearing age. Men can also be affected as well as children, like myself was, but majority of women in their childbearing age are those who are affected. So I had to make it fun because I am an educator. So we have a little bit of trivia all throughout this presentation. So for the sake of time and the sake of...
Ashley, are you advancing your slides?
I am.
They're not moving.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me do this. One sec.
Mhm.
Let's see. All right.
There you go. Okay.
Do you guys see lupus trivia?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, like I was saying, we have some trivia questions all throughout, and for the sake of time, I just want you to think of the answers to yourself, and we'll celebrate with a thumbs up if you thought of the correct answer. So the first question is, who is more likely to, hold on one second, I can't see my screen, to develop lupus? Is it men or is it women? So just think about that answer to yourself. I'll give you a second. Have your answer in your head. Here we go. So the answer is women. Women are more likely to develop lupus, affecting women 9 times more often than men. So that's just a fun fact for you guys. If you got it right, can I see a thumbs up? Who said women? Nice. The crowd is very smart. Here we go. So when we think about lupus, we're thinking about our body attacking itself. So our immune system usually functions to protect us from diseases and infections, but in lupus, our body is mistakenly attacking our own organs that causes inflammation and tissue damage. So here I have a definition of what inflammation is. It's a physical condition where the body can become swollen, red, and very painful from injury and or infection, which is most of what you see in lupus. Symptoms can be acute inflammation, subacute inflammation, and chronic inflammation. And the only thing that determines that is the amount of time that it lasts. So let's talk about why it's important to actually understand what lupus is. Because we could be talking about anything, but it's important to understand what it is and not just guess or try to figure out on our own. It's important for early detection because if we know the risk factors and have early detection, we can get medical intervention quickly and not have as much suffering later on in life. Effective management. We can build relationships with our healthcare providers to be able to control symptoms and prevent flares and minimize the damage that it can cause on your organs. It can also, knowing can improve your quality of life. So being able to participate in your care and knowing treatment options is important to improve your quality of life. Reducing stigmas and misconceptions. Like I was saying earlier, when I was growing up, people would ask me, is that cancer? So knowing exactly what it is and not just going off of what you think or what you heard and knowing the facts is very important to know why we need to know what lupus is. Enhance support networks. So having an awareness can help develop networks for patients, caregivers, healthcare providers, advocacy groups, providing information to support those with lupus or those that we know that have lupus. And of course, advancement in research. At this moment, there's no cure for lupus. So getting more information, building on what we have can help, hopefully in the future, get us a cure. Another trivia question. What is the name of the characteristic rash that often appears on the face of individuals with lupus? So take a second and think about that. So when you have lupus, there's a type of lupus actually that focuses just on skin. And sometimes those early on that are diagnosed with lupus, they will have this rash, and there's a name for that rash. So here we go. Let's get the answer.
Butterfly.
That's it. The characteristic is called the butterfly rash or the malar rash. It appears across the cheeks and in the nose in butterfly shape. And later on in our presentation, we're actually going to see an example of that.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are, the types of lupus. So systemic lupus accounts for 70% of all cases of lupus. That is the type of lupus that I have. At the age of 12 years old, I was diagnosed with this lupus. Approximately half of the cases can cause major organ tissue damage that can affect the heart, lungs, kidneys, and brain. So in my case, I have issues with my kidney, which I have protein spilling in my kidneys, so that has to be monitored often. I have had a few issues with the heart, but nothing major. And also with the brain, there has been issues with that as far as the stroke that I had and having it being caused from having a blood disorder from having lupus, which caused the stroke. So as you can see, when we say systems, it's all mashed together. Our body works together to take care of us, to work, to run. So when one of those things is out of whack or our body is fighting itself, those things can cause boom, an explosion, and things can happen like stroke, like cancer, like all those things that I've experienced. So as you see in the first picture at the top up here, this is the butterfly rash that we were discussing on the fact slide. Then you have discoid lupus, right? Which is known as the skin lupus. It only affects the skin, and that's about 10% of all lupus cases. So you'll see that rash, and they really don't have any other underlying issues with that, but that is discoid lupus. Then you have drug-induced lupus. So as you see in the picture right here on the arms, that is about 10% of all lupus cases that are called by medications. So you can take medications that can give you similar effects to having lupus, but these side effects will usually go away once the medication is discontinued. Then you have neonatal lupus, which can be caused by a mother that is having a child where the antibodies will attach to the fetus. So you see in babies, they may have the rash, they may have liver problems or low blood cell counts, but about after 6 months, those effects should not last. So those are the types of lupus. So now let's talk about what causes lupus. Can you catch lupus? Can I stand next to you, cough on you, and can you get it? No. So in most cases, it's a hereditary thing, right? This is how in my family, I have aunts, my father may have a touch, all the way down the line of generations. My family has lupus. So somehow it hit me. So it also can be from environmental factors like sunlight and infections. So when we talk about that discoid lupus, the skin lupus, that's more like an environmental factor. Or hormonal factors when we're talking about that prenatal lupus, the hormonal factors in the women. And then things like stress and medications can also provide triggering effects that can cause lupus. So the exact cause of lupus is not quite fully understood. They're still doing research to understand, but it's believed to be a combined event of all the things that I just named to you. And some of the, like I said, potential triggers can be the sunlight, infections, medications, hormonal changes, and all those good things. Here we go. Trivia, true or false? Lupus is contagious. Think about
False.
somebody is ready.
False, yeah.
False. Lupus is not contagious. It's an autoimmune disease, not an infectious one. So it's not an infectious disease, it's an autoimmune disease. So some symptoms of lupus. This is a lot of times I'll hear friends say, oh my goodness, I've been so tired recently and my joints are hurting, my muscles are hurting. I don't know what's going on with me. The first thing I tell them is go see their doctor and go get tested for lupus. I've met people on the internet that told me the same thing. And the first thing I tell them is go tell your doctor to run some labs for lupus, because that is one of the main side effects and symptoms of having lupus. Joint pain and swelling, fatigue, being extra tired, not being able to complete tasks during the day, rash, skin rashes, particularly that butterfly rash that we talked about, having fever, unexplainable fevers, chest pain, shortness of breath, headache, Raynaud's phenomenon, kidney problems, hair loss, and mouth or nose ulcers. So a lot of these symptoms that we're seeing can also look like or mimic other things, right? We all have headaches. We all have shortness of breath at times. But when it's continuous and you're seeing some of these other symptoms, that's when I would recommend that you tell your friend, your loved one, or yourself to go ahead and get that blood work done to get checked for lupus. It's no harm in getting checked for lupus to see if that's what your numbers read. It's better to know than to not know. So as far as diagnosis of lupus, treatment and cure, like I said earlier, there's currently no cure for lupus, but what they are trying to do is control symptoms, prevent flares, and minimize organ damage. So when we're talking about the word flare, that's one of our main vocabulary words. That means, like for sickle cell, you're in a crisis. That means you're sick. That means you're going through something with your lupus, okay, when we talk about flares. So treatments for lupus is a combination of medications of steroids, non-steroids, NSAIDs, anti-malarial drugs, immunosuppressants, and biologic therapies. So when we talk about immunosuppressants, we talk about things like steroids that when you are taking these drugs, which I've been taking since the age of 12 years old, we're not able to fight off things. So when you're around people that have colds or they're sneezing or they're coughing, and I look at them funny and they don't understand that my body can't fight off the same things that your body can fight off. I'm doing that because I know what my body can do and how it handles things. So those persons with lupus or who have those types of diseases, it's harder for us to fight things off. So we have to stay away from those people. So things like changing your lifestyle, protecting your skin from sunlight, using sunscreen, exercise, managing stress can help maintain and manage your condition. I'll be the first one to say, I'm really trying really hard to do better with my diet, do better with exercise, but it's hard, especially when you're younger and you're raising a family. It's a lot going on. So all you can do is the best that you can do. Like I tell my teachers I work with, you can only bring your best, and that's it. So as long as you're trying, I commend you, right? And so that's all you can do. So in order to diagnose lupus, we're going to look at medical history. We're going to look at family history. We're going to do an examination. Your lab works and your ANA blood count are going to tell us where you're at, what you're doing. Your analysis is going to be able to check your kidney function, imaging and testing, and biopsies if your tissues are affected. So for instance, an example, my kidneys are affected. So I just recently had a kidney biopsy to see what range my kidney was at and how it was functioning and what we needed to do to move forward. Trivia. What are the main organs and systems that lupus can affect? I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it. What are the main organs and systems that lupus can affect?
Kidneys.
Kidneys.
Lupus can affect multiple organs and systems in the body, including skin, joints, kidneys, heart, lungs, blood vessels, and the brain. So if you know somebody with lupus, love them because they're going through a lot.
Yeah.
So living with lupus, research continues. Like I said, there's no cure, but the research continues to be done that hopefully will lead to better treatments and a cure one day. So at this time, early diagnosis is the best thing that we can do. So like I said, if you start having those symptoms or you know somebody that are mentioning those symptoms, early diagnosis is the best thing that you can do. But until that time, using coping strategies. So for myself, I am a planner girl. I'm not sure if y'all know what that means, but I have a group of friends that I get together with and I plan. And I know some of them are on the call now. And so we plan and we play with stickers. It's almost like scrapbooking, but that's one of my coping strategies. Because when life wears down on you and you're constantly sick and you, from day to day, you don't know what's going to happen. One day you can walk, one day you can't. One day you feel like eating, one day you don't. You need something that's going to give you that boost and make you want to do something. So one of my coping strategies is planning, having support networks. Like I said, my group of friends that I have, I mean, they do nothing but pour into me, love on me. My family network, they do the same exact thing. The importance of self-care, you have to take care of yourself. And a lot of times I feel like those persons living with lupus, you know, you're busy taking care of yourself, but doing so much for others. So it's important to remember and make time for your self-care, monitoring your system, monitoring your symptoms. Like I said, life gets busy. Having a full-time job, having a family, it gets busy. Who wants to sit there and track their blood pressure? Who wants to sit there and remember to take their medicine? Yes, sometimes I forget to take my medicine, but I know that it's important for me to monitor my symptoms so I do not get worse or I don't throw something out of whack that would cause me to have a flare. And of course, regular medical follow up, making sure we're keeping appointments, making sure that we're making it to appointments, making sure that we're even scheduling appointments. A lot of times we feel that even not just for lupus, we feel like, oh, my neck is hurting, my shoulder's hurting. I'm just going to hope it goes away. I'm just going to hope it passes by. But it's so important because those things can turn into something else. And you don't want to be in a situation where something gets worse that did not have to be. So make sure that you all are making medical appointments. You know, if you need help, reach out and ask. Some possible complications of having lupus that we know are possible organ damage that can affect the lungs, the kidneys, the hearts, all the systems of the bodies that we named. An increased risk of infections, like we were talking about with that immune system, where you can catch things easier, pregnancy complications, cardiovascular disease, which can lead to heart attacks, and also osteoporosis and arthritis. So here, this is living with lupus. This is me. This is my life. Excuse me. This is my life. This is my support system. These are the people that surround me, that support me. And I know I have people on here. I have people that I might have missed. I have church family that is not even here in Norfolk with me, that support me, that always check on me, that talk to my parents, that check on me, my family, my friends. I just thank everybody because I probably wouldn't have the energy or the tenacity that I have today to be able to share my story if it wasn't for the people and these photos that keep me going and that support me and that have been there for me throughout my whole journey. As we get ready to wrap up, we got some more lupus trivia. So approximately how many people worldwide are estimated to have lupus? This was on an earlier slide. How many people worldwide are estimated to have lupus? Let you think for 1 second. Approximately 5 million people worldwide are estimated to have lupus. So I want to thank you all for your attention. You can keep up with me on social media, on Facebook, Ashley Hayes, on TikTok, Ashley Has Life, and on Instagram at Miss A Shantae to follow my journey and everything that I'm doing. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Oh, thank you, Ashley, so much for sharing your story. I'm sure that people want to ask you questions. I see some hands raised, so I'll start with Belinda.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. When you were going over the list of medications that you could possibly have to take, the one that stood out for me was the anti-malaria medication. Why is that relevant for the process?
So it's funny, when I was probably when I first got diagnosed, that was one of the drugs they gave me just to see if it would help subside the symptoms that I was having. It didn't, and that's when they switched me to a higher dose of prednisone. But for some, I believe that it can help with the symptoms that come with having lupus. So for me, that didn't work, but the high dose of steroids, it did work, but in the same hand, it caused me to have medically induced psychosis. And if you're not familiar with medically induced psychosis, that's when you are basically having psychotic episodes, you're seeing things, you're hearing things. They actually wanted to admit me to the MCV psychiatric ward, but my mom, who's on the call right now, I remember it like it was yesterday. It's crazy things I remember, but I remember it. She would not let them do that. She would not let them do it. They wanted to lock me up. They wanted to lock me up, but she would not let them do that. And she took control over me, and she took me all the way to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I saw a specialist there, and that's when he started lowering the medication for me. So I can get some more information for you in regards to that answer the drug that you were talking about, and I can follow up with you.
So I was just going to say that the inflammation that's caused with lupus, that particular product affects that inflammation, the byproduct of that. So that's why it's used. Next question.
Thank you.
Mhm. No questions. Ashley, at 12, how did you find out? Did you have, Jay, did you have your hand up? Come, okay, we'll unmute you. Are you able to unmute yourself? There you are. Yes.
Hi, I'm Calvin Dixon, Ashley's long lost cousin, and I live in Philadelphia. Did they recommend a specific diet for you going forward?
Absolutely. Absolutely they did. Do I follow it? The Lord is still working on me.
You're from Virginia. I know you don't follow that diet.
But yes, so of course, low carb, low sugar. Now with the kidney stuff going on, low sodium. There's so many things that I'm supposed to be doing, and I really am trying. But those cheesesteaks in Philadelphia,
I know you're right
um,
about it.
right, it's a lot. So yeah, so for someone with lupus, they suggest low sodium, low carb, low sugar.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ashley, that's
Hi.
probably good for all of us. Low carb, low
Yes.
sugar. Yeah. So, okay. Who's up next? Barbara?
That Courtney called. No.
No.
But she just tried to call
Clay,
me.
Clay, you need to mute.
Calvin.
All right. Cool beans. All right.
Hi, Ashley. My name is Constance Glenn, and I, like you, have lupus. I did not get I was not diagnosed with lupus until I was about 33 years old. And I've also been on you probably have been on the um,
Chloroquine.
what is it, chlorophyll? Yeah. I've been on that for years. And I was doing really, really well. But the last maybe three months or so, I had a flare. And so I'm now on the IV infusion therapy. I use Benlysta, and that has made a huge difference because, like you said, one of the side effects is joint pain and just exhaustion. And that has really helped a great deal, for me.
Great information. I kind of want to talk about that too. So my rheumatologist has told me about the Benlysta, and I was still thinking about it and wondering because right now I've been kind of stable with everything.
Right.
And so when you've been on something for so long, it's kind of hard to detach yourself. Do I
Yeah.
want to be relying on prednisone and steroids the rest of my life? I
Right.
don't, but
Right.
it's been a long journey. And so
Yeah.
it's a little scary. It's a little,
Mhm.
I'm a little nervous. And
Right.
so, like you were saying, with also the joint pain, when I was first diagnosed, I was unable to walk. I had
Right.
to learn to walk all over again. And
Mhm.
it's a story with that because Miss Overton here challenged me that if
Mhm.
I got up out that bed, that she would get me a scooter. And this was when scooters were all the rage. And I remember being in Children's Hospital in Richmond, Virginia, and trying every day just to get up, do my therapy. And I remember trying to learn how to put my clothes on again. And at this point, I'm probably like 13. I'm getting older at this point. And
Right.
so I remember the day that my scooter came. I remember. And that was all thanks to Miss Overton here. And so those are like moments that I'll never forget. But when you talk about having that joint pain and feeling it, now it's like not as often that I experience that, but
Right.
it happens. It happens. And that's the strange thing with lupus because you don't know when a flare is going to come. And you don't know when the good days are going to be good and when the bad days are going to be bad. So I appreciate you for sharing that comment.
Oh, sure, sure. Thank you for the information that you presented this evening as well.
Absolutely.
Constance, thank you for speaking up and sharing that. I think that that'll help many people not to be fearful of an IV, an infusion
Right.
to do it, and the benefit that it can serve to help others. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, certainly,
So, yeah,
certainly.
most appreciative of that. So you answered my question. I wanted people to hear how you were first diagnosed. What were your symptoms? And you had that pain. But if you want to give a little bit more detail, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, one of the biggest things at first, I was having so much joint pain all of a sudden. And the sun, I used to do a lot of yard work, and the sun would just kill me. It just brought me down to absolutely nothing. I also, my hair was falling out. I had rashes all over my skin. And I was just in so much pain and I was just exhausted all the time. And just recently, before I got onto the Benlysta, my the way I felt as far as being exhausted, that had come back. I mean, I could barely get out of bed, and I'm retired, 65, and it was rough. And I, like you, did not want to use the infusion therapy. I was kind of hesitant about that, but it truly has made a huge difference. It's made a huge difference. So yes, like she was saying, the tiredness, the sun, my joints, just, had a lot of issues with that.
Thank you. Belinda,
Mhm.
you have another question?
I do. I want to ask Miss Constant a question. And again, thank you, Miss Constance, for sharing your story as well. Are you talking
Sure.
about the infusion drug process? Is that something that you give to yourself, or you always have to go in for a professional to administer that process?
Yes, I have to go in to a professional. When I first started it, I had to get the infusion every other week. So now I'm to the point where I do it once a month. And the whole process usually takes about 2.5 to 3 hours.
If you had to, Ashley, if you had to tell a group of scientists or any medical professionals something regarding the role they play in your journey, what would that be?
I would tell them to listen to Black women. That's what I would tell them. There has been studies that show that Black women and minority women are not heard in that space. And I would tell them to listen. I have been so blessed and I'm so grateful and thankful that my care team and my providers are the type of care team, if I tell them I'm having a problem or I'm having an issue, they will act, they will give me what I need, and it's not a problem. But I've also heard the stories of some of my fellow sisters that have lupus, and they say, I went to my doctor, I can barely walk, and they won't give me a handicap sticker. Like, it's things like that where, or they won't give me any pain management or pain medicine for the pain I'm experiencing. So if I was in the room with them, that would be the first thing I would say, is to listen to what we are saying, so we can be better and we can be taken care of just like the other races that are heard and that don't have to fight as hard as the people of color.
Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else have any other questions you'd like to ask Ashley? Y'all are mighty quiet.
Mighty quiet.
Mighty
Oh, Miss
quiet.
T over there has a question.
Okay.
I don't so much have a question, but my name is Talia. My friends call me T. I just want to thank Ashley and Miss Constance for giving us this information, because I have heard about lupus for many, many years, as we all may have, and I just never knew what it was, because of course, when it doesn't affect you, you may not research it as much. And I am so thankful to be here in this room today to hear this conversation so that, again, when I hear people stating that they have those symptoms, I can say, hey, maybe you need to tell your doctor about lupus or so forth and so on, and even for myself going in the future. So thank you again, ladies, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for all of you who follow Ashley and joined the call today. It's wonderful that you joined, and we're happy to have you on the call, because we just want to make a difference in everybody's life, learning something new about a condition or a disease that you can share with another person. Don't keep it to yourself. Please share it with somebody else. I have a question, a trivia. I'm going to follow you, Ashley, to ask this question. How many of you know at least one person that has lupus, not counting Ashley now or Constance? How many of you know a person with lupus? So not as many as I suspected or as I thought. How many of you know two or more? Okay. All right. It's important that we spread the word and we share with others and support them, to give them the encouragement and the support that they need. It's not an easy something to live with at all. And Constance being diagnosed at 33 is probably a very common time. And Ashley, you were just very, very young. So thank you for sharing. I learned something new with this that I didn't know, all the medications that were used. And I had to be reminded of what ANA was, the anti-nuclear test. One of the things that this group always likes to hear or to know is what type of blood work and tests can be done so that we can be screened. And getting that ANA test is very significant and important for you to know, and getting that blood work done. So, all right. So keep that in
Lisa,
mind
yeah,
for-
this is Belinda. I have an additional question.
Uh-huh.
Just out of curiosity, how supportive was insurance in helping you to get through some of what you were going through? Was that a battle or?
At the time, I was, like I said, only 12.
Mhm.
And so I was still on my mom's insurance, and she had phenomenal insurance. So again, another, by the grace of God, I was covered under her for a lot of things. So, and then as I'm older now, I always make sure that with my job and my insurance, I always pick the best plan, because I know I have appointments. I know I'm going to be seeing doctors more than the normal person, and I'm going to be seeing specialists. So I make sure that I cater my plan to the payments that I know I would like to make. So I might pay a little bit more upfront to have a lower cost later. And I will also say too, to my friends who may not have insurance, you can go out there and get something, because we can't be afraid. We can't, like, even if you don't have it, they're not going to refuse you medical care if you go to the emergency room and you're in a crisis. So I always tell my friends that don't have insurance, like, at this point, this could be a life-saving thing. So don't be afraid to go out there and do it.
If I can say one thing in reference to insurance, I never had an issue with insurance. I've always worked for the state of Virginia, so I've had great insurance, myself and my husband. But since I started the Benlysta, that is extremely expensive. I just looked at my statement the other day from my insurance company, and the Benlysta itself is $6,000 for each therapy that I get. Medicare brings that down to 4,000 and some odd dollars. Okay. And I have a secondary insurance that I have that picks up that 20% that Medicare does not pay for. So it is just, it's awful, because a lot of people do not have a secondary insurance that will pick up that amount for that type of coverage. So it can be extremely expensive, but there are organizations out there that your doctor's office can possibly help you with if you don't have that type of coverage to help you be able to qualify for some of these therapies out there.
Mhm.
And I also wanted to address some things in the chat. So one of the questions was, are people born with lupus? So people are not necessarily born with lupus. They have the antibodies in their body when they're born. So it's almost like a sleeping dog. So it's in your body and it's something that causes it to awaken, which in my case, all through middle school, all through elementary school, somewhat I was doing the most. I was on the flag team, I was running, I was jumping, I was skipping, and then something in my body triggered a flare and the lupus. And I believe my mom can correct me if I'm wrong. We actually at the time were visiting my aunt Dot in New York City, and I just started feeling extremely fatigued. And I know that people hear the word fatigue and they think like, oh, you're tired. No, this is like, I could barely take a sip of water. I could barely lift my head to drink water. I didn't want to get up. I just felt so dehydrated. And we had to call the ambulance to the 19th floor of a New York City apartment building. And I remember getting to the hospital and them charging you 50 cents to watch the TV in the room. And so it just, it was just a journey, because even then we didn't know that I had lupus. I was being tested for all these things and trying to figure out what it was, and we could not figure out what it was. And that's when a rheumatologist stepped in and said, you know what, let's test her for lupus. And that's when we got the numbers back and found out that that's what it was. So it's not necessarily that a baby is going to come out and it has lupus besides the prenatal lupus, which is the effects from the mother. But it's laying dormant in your body and in your system. And like I said, it can be a hereditary thing. So it's just passed down from generation to generation. Also, I just saw, okay. Deaconess Mary Studevant, when I was in that hospital, she also enticed me to get out the bed because she would bring these ribs and this corn from Costco. And y'all know I love to eat. And so they would come, her and Mr. Roger would come to the hospital and bring me those treats. And I just fell in love with it. And I was on a lot of steroids. So another side effect of steroids is excessive eating. And I was doing a lot of eating, and they fed me good. They fed me very well. And so I'm thankful for them being in my life all the way to this point now. And so we had another comment that said, from hearing this today, that they feel like they actually may have lupus and it may go get tested. So I'm glad to see comments like that we can open our minds. And like I said, it's no harm in going to get checked out. It's going to be a yes or a no. And so if you have the tools early on, I feel like you'll be better supported later on in life. That's all from the chat.
Thank you. I hadn't even looked in the chat. I thought this group would raise their hands. They don't look shy. But thank you everyone for joining. This recording will be archived, so you can come back to the BAAHRI.org website. I think if you receive this email, you'll see the website and how to reach out and get access to the archive. Okay. Welcome. If this was your first time, please join us again next month. We're doing mind and wellness. And next month is Lupus Awareness Month. So take this information with you. There are other awarenesses in May, but our focus for next month will be lupus and wellness, mindfulness, and well-being. So join us. Everybody have a great evening, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
having
much for having me. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
coming
Ashley,
out.
for sharing
Thank
and
you,
your
Ashley.
I love y'all
transparency.
so much.
Thank you so much.
I miss y'all too. Oh
Thank you,
God.
Ashley.
See ya.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Ashley.
You too.